UFC 294, guys, I just want to set the stage for you. I want to set the stage for you that you have a main event that apparently is really sought after. And I'm not looking to be a jerk about that at all. I'm just sharing for you. Islam versus Charles has already happened. And apparently that did so well and had such an interest in parts of the world that I don't personally live. I couldn't feel it in parts of the world that they wanted to rematch it. According to Charles's coach, right? Lima, and Lima never swerves us. Lima always tells us straight up, according to Charles's coach, after that fight, they came in the locker room that night and asked Charles if he would like to do the rematch in Perth. Now, it's extremely relevant because at the time this alleged conversation happened in the locker room, in between the fight and that moment, Volkanovski stepped face-to-face to Islam and they agreed to fight. World title for number one ranking. Like, generally, there's nothing the 45-pounder can put up. Volkanovski had something to put up, and he was smart enough to say it. You bring the belt, I'll bring the number one ranking. They're both on the line with Cormier in the middle. I mean, you couldn't market or stage anything as valuable as that was. This isn't Chael's opinion. That fight that people weren't overly interested in, with two guys that people weren't overly interested in, turned into a top 5 pay-per-view ever, according to Dana. So it worked. And in between that, it was considered to scrap the whole thing and put Charles back in. I'm just bringing to you, like, somewhere in the world, even if it's not the hometown I live, somewhere in the world, that's a big deal and people would like to see the rematch. It's very relevant that you understand this. Now, that's not the odds makers. The odds makers had a 3-1 Islam in the first place. This is when Charles is red hot. Red hot Charles, boom, boom, puts down Justin Gaethje. Boom, boom, boom. Choke, puts out Poirier. I mean, right, Charles is red hot. He was a 3-1 underdog. Now that the world's seen it, there was nothing competitive about it. He's a 4-1 underdog. I'm not giving him a hard time. Please don't interpret it that way. I have a completely different point. I very much value the fact if somebody's a 4-1 underdog and they're willing to step in it with short pants and a mouthpiece. I'm not giving them a hard time. I'm attempting to bring for you whatever part of the world that's a sought-after match. It isn't this one, right? It's not where I'm standing. Fair enough. Don't need it to be. Have a co-main event. Co-main event, to cite my old partner Errol Hawani, is the people's main event. This is the one that people want to see. Now, you've got a world title fight on top of the bill, okay? That's not what's going to butter your bread, but you've got a world title fight on top of the bill. The first time that you did it, you were so unsure that it would happen that you brought in an alternate fighter. You brought in an alternate Volkanovski. You got to pay him. There's participation. It's the whole song and dance, whatever. We got a travel department, book these guys, get them a hotel. I understand those things can happen, but this is still a fairly large decision because when you bring in Volkanovski to be a backup fighter, you're also putting 145 on hold. You can't go book Volkanovski a 45-pound fight while he's an alternate at 155, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that play here. It's not just a simple announcement, particularly when it's a guy in a different weight class, and that's what was done for the first fight. It's not being done for this fight. I'm okay with that. You can't lose the paper main event, which is this one, and your co-main event. Can't happen. Not on this card. Can't happen. So what do? How are you going to preserve it? Don't have a backup fighter for the main event. Fair enough. Fair enough. Who are you going to put for the co-main? And conventional wisdom says Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier was the leading candidate to fight Chimaev when Paulo Costa was booked against a Russian kickboxer in Salt Lake City. Now, we all make mistakes as a human being, right? I certainly understand those things. That never should have happened. Paulo Costa versus a Russian kickboxer in Salt Lake City. Fair enough. Make mistake, but it was corrected, right? You got the power of the pin, you got the eraser, you take it back, you move him over here. Who are you going to put in the backup spot? And I think that it's very relevant. I think it's very relevant because we've never had a card before, right? There's all sorts of things about October 22nd that I love, that I've never seen before, but I'm going to throw one more at you. which is if we're going to have a backup fighter, and I think we are, I don't think we're going to have it for the main event. I don't think we're going to have it for the main event. The most important match to keep, I think, right? I mean, I'm one guy with my finger on the pulse, but I can tell you nobody's co-main event. Co-main event is what's important here. We've never had a time where we brought in a backup fighter that wasn't for the main event. So now if you bring in a backup fighter for the co-main event, you are signaling to the audience and the guys on the card and everybody else who can fog a mirror, that's the match that's most important, even though it's not the one to close out the night. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is the fear of potentially doing that, and therefore we don't bring a backup fighter for the co-main event, which is the match everybody wants to see, because that's the one that's in jeopardy. Something is off with Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev, whatever that might be. But the chances that both of them woke up one day and go, you know what, I'm not going to do any media for this fight. You know what, I'm not going to call him out. You know what, I'm not going to man this is a number one contenders match. You know what, I'm not going to talk about beating him and going into Sean Strickland. Like, the chances of them both having a light bulb that comes on that is the exact same, come on. Something is weird about this match. And if I can smell it, you guys can smell it, which means the boys on the second floor at the UFC can smell it, which means you bring in a backup fighter, which I think is going to be Jared Cannonier, which is a very different situation. And if you bring in a backup fighter for a co-main event and not for the main event, which has never been done before, it's not an easy job. Right? Like, matchmaking and promoting is not an easy job. I'm not bringing you things that hasn't been considered already. I'm not bringing you things that doesn't have a contingency plan. I'm not bringing you some kind of breaking news. I'm revealing something to you that's already been considered. I don't know what the idea is. I don't know what the contingency plan is. And I would worry that understanding you need a contingency plan on Fight Island, which isn't even easy to get to, and you're going to get people on weight, you're going to get people trained up, you're going to get people ready to go, not to mention they're going into a major spot in a really hard fight. It doesn't matter if you're stepping in with Chimaev or you're stepping in with Paulo Costa. That is a tough night out, period. It's not going to be the easiest thing to find somebody to go and do. And if having a fear of admitting that your co-main is outshining your main, so you don't have a backup plan when you got Charles Oliveira in the main event that's already set, I'm fighting Conor McGregor, I'm not fighting him, I won't be healthy in October. By the way, I'm not going to do any media for the fight. Like, I mean, you got this colossally difficult situation. And this is not Chael sprinkling some kind of doubt on it. I like the dance. I like to see how it will go. There's very few things that I can still learn about promotion. There's a whole lot of things I could teach you. There's very few things that I can learn. I'm going to learn something new here because there is a plan and there is an ace up the sleeve. There's a reason there was a plan. There's a reason on a Tuesday night contender series, a question gets asked, is Adesanya in fact the number one contender? That wasn't a random question. That was somebody told him, ask the question so that I can make sure it's clear. This is interesting stuff. This is really good stuff. I live for this stuff. I love it. I love it a lot more than a jab or a dig to the body. I love to see this positioning and this maneuvering. I don't know what the answer is. But I do know between a main and a co-main, can't lose them both. And if you have to preserve one of the two, the co is most important. And if you're going to attempt to emulate a genuine organic rivalry between Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev, you better have a pretty good answer. I trust that they do. What I don't know at this time is what that is.